What's going on, everybody? You're tuning in to Bottom Line Sports Talk with T, serving up deeper insight on everything sports. I got a real good show for you today on the heels of the Heat taking a commanding 3-1 series lead over the Thunder with their victory in Game 4, one that could very well be the nail in the coffin of Oklahoma City. This whole show will be dedicated to the NBA Finals today, as last night gave me way too much to talk about, so let's get right into it. As I always will on this show, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Not only did I think the Thunder would tie this series up at 2-2 last night, I thought the Thunder would win this series in 6. But the Heat and LeBron James have simply imposed their will the last 4 games. And I'm going to start out by talking about LeBron and reference a podcast I did last year called What Is It and Why Some Don't Have It. I made the point in that episode that greatness comes from pain. Greatness comes from failures. The ones that care enough that they feel the pain and use it as fuel, those are the players that have the potential to be great. I have to preface this point real quick with LeBron by relating it to the Thunder first, because heading into the NBA Finals, I kept telling myself, man, these Thunder are battle-tested. They've been through some tough series in their 3 years together. First, they took the Lakers to 6, which put OKC on the map 2 years ago. Then they went to the West Finals last year, but lost in 5 to the Mavericks. This year, they sweep the Mavs, take the Lakers in 5, then win 4 straight to rid themselves of a streaking Spurs team. This is what I didn't realize, though. They didn't really endure pain in any of those series. They weren't supposed to beat the Lakers 2 years ago, who went on to win the NBA title. They weren't supposed to beat the Mavericks last year, who went on to win the NBA title. They didn't suffer real pain when they were eliminated the last couple years, because as a young team, they actually got moral victories from all that. If, well, really when, the Thunder lose this series, it'll be their first real taste of pain. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about LeBron James and pain, which have gone together like steak and eggs throughout his career. All the failures with the Cavaliers, including getting swept by the Spurs in the finals. Last year, the epic collapse and terrible performances against the Mavericks. LeBron James has endured immeasurable pain. But for the first time in his career, he's playing with it. And that's become evident in these playoffs, especially now. You don't see LeBron cracking up with teammates as much, dancing, flexing to the camera. You don't see those things. Instead, you see a stern-faced LeBron? LeBron's reading books now? LeBron's talking humbly to reporters in the media. For the first time in his career, that pain is showing through. But instead of letting that pain just sit on his back, he ate it and let it fuel him. Instead of letting it discourage him, he's letting it encourage him. Remember when he looked disengaged at times during last year's finals? LeBron is engaged all right. He knows where every one of his teammates are on the floor, and he's dishing dimes to them all game long. He was 1 rebound short of a triple-double last night. I can't get over the fact that LeBron's 2 best talents offensively go together so well. He's the best penetrator in the game and maybe the best passer in the league. That's a deadly combination. Honestly, if I'm the Heat, get him more Shane Battier type guys, because he'll find them all day long for open threes. And by the way, he's guarding the best offensive player in the league, Kevin Durant, and doing a damn good job of it. For me, a person that's criticized LeBron throughout his career, I'm not saying the criticism he received from me and others was unwarranted, because it was. You can be a role player like James Harden and play like LeBron did in last year's finals and still get tons of criticism for it. By the way, Harden, I'm getting to you soon. Don't worry. But those types of performances are inexcusable. The decision was inexcusable. But maybe it was destined to be this way. Maybe it was bound to be the case all along that LeBron would finally let the pain sink in to become great. There was never any doubt that LeBron had great talents. There was never any doubt he had been dealt pain. Those are 2 of the 3 prerequisites for greatness right there. He had the talent, he was dealt the pain. It was the 3rd prerequisite that LeBron haters like me weren't sure he'd meet, and that was letting that pain hurt. Letting it sink in to the point where it would motivate him enough to win a ring. Jordan went through the pain, just like Kobe went through the pain. And really every superstar has gone through it. In that episode when I answered the question, what is it and why some don't have it, that's what I was trying to explain. Now LeBron has answered that question. He took all that pain and turned it into greatness. And for all the criticism I gave LeBron before, I can root for a guy who is mentally tough enough to deal with all the crap he's dealt with. I can root for a guy who plays the end of a finals game with a limp. And I can root for a guy who wins despite suffering pain in the sport like maybe no other superstar ever has. Now let me talk about Russell Westbrook. Let me talk about this 23-year-old kid who played 45 minutes last night and scored 43 points on 20 for 32 shooting with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. You know, I bet his teammates are just as impressed as the Heat and everybody else at home watching. If you don't know who Mr. Westbrook is, now you know. Unbelievable performance. Now, I'm not forgetting the fact that he dribbled the ball off his foot late in the game or that he committed that back-breaking foul at the end of the game, but let's be real. OKC would have lost by at least 20 if it wasn't for him, and that's not an exaggeration. He was the only reason the Thunder survived when the Heat made their run in the second quarter, and he was the only reason the Thunder had a shot in the fourth quarter. For a second, I thought that in the midst of all this talk about LeBron versus Durant, that another superstar would rise above both of them for a game and give the Thunder a must-win road game to tie the series 2-2. For whatever reason, Westbrook left it all on the floor and the rest of the Thunder didn't last night. This guy is the fastest basketball player I've ever seen play the game. He was getting to the rim at will. There's a legitimate argument that Westbrook is the best point guard in the game. I know some people question his talents as a true point guard because he's not the most gifted assist man, and I totally understand that. But you have to consider him as the best point guard in the game from the standpoint that, from a matchup standpoint, which point guard will he not get the best of based on his speed, defense, and shot-making ability? Tony Parker outclassed him for the first two games of the West Finals. He dropped 34 on him in Game 2 before Westbrook put his defense hat on and went to work. I love D. Rose, and I love Rajon Rondo, but Westbrook, man, I mean, he's unbelievable, and I'm excited to see how he evolves his game. While Westbrook set the world and almost the Heat on fire last night, one guy in particular was about as cold as a homeless person in Alaska in the wintertime. And it's strange because I thought James Harden was somewhat of a stone-cold killer with some of the big shots he hit against the Lakers and Spurs. He had a good game too, shooting 7 for 11 with 21 points. Outside of that, he's gone 6 for 26 in these finals, and he's had back-to-back games where he's gone 2 for 10. This guy has scored a total of 22 points through 4 games after averaging 16 a game against the Lakers and a little more than 18 a game in the 2 series versus the Mavericks and Spurs. At one point in the fourth quarter, Harden missed a wide open 3 where it looked like he was aiming for Alaska instead of the rim. A minute later, he intercepts a pass, goes coast to coast, and misses a gimme layup. I don't know what's happened to Harden in this series, but I tell you what, Harden said the Thunder were, quote, a perfect team and had everything they needed to win it all. If the Thunder do make a big offseason move, it may be Harden that gets moved based on his performance in these finals. Back to that quote from Harden, he referred to the fact that the Thunder had the perfect team. He mentioned that they have a 3-time scoring champ, the most athletic point guard in the league, the best shot blocker in the league, the best post defender in the league, good bench, good coach, 6th man of the year. But at the moment, all that matters is that the Thunder are down 3-1. The only thing giving OKC a chance is that this is the last game in Miami. And if they can win Game 5 on Thursday, they'll have the last 2 games in what might possibly be the loudest crowd we will ever hear in our lives for Game 6 and Game 7. But that's only if they make it back to OKC. There comes a time in almost every NBA playoff series when a team knows they're the better team or not the better team. Something tells me the Thunder may have gotten that feeling that they're not the better team in this series when the Heat threw OKC's early 17-point lead in the trash like it didn't even exist. Last night, it was crazy. The Thunder were up by 17. I took a bite of my sandwich, and before I moved my jaw to start chewing, they were down by 2. And it doesn't seem like too long ago that OKC had a 1-0 series lead, but just as quickly the Heat have won 3 straight and are in position to celebrate an NBA title in Miami that's filled with more vindication than any in history, and we would all be witnesses. Thanks for tuning in to Bottom Line Sports Talk with T. That's me, Talal Masri. Make sure to visit the new Facebook wall for Bottom Line Sports. You can find me on Twitter at TSunSports. Please feel free to comment. That's it for today. I'm out.